They called it a mercy drop. We called it a cosmic eviction notice, complete with a sarcastic bow. That was the first sentence in Commander Maeve Rourke's daily log, dated 16 Earth years after exile. She'd typed it with one hand while sipping bitter black coffee with the other, coffee brewed from synthetic grounds processed through recycled algae proteins. It tasted like burned rubber and defiance. Carnax 12, the rock they'd been dumped on, had a kind of cruel poetry to it. Picture a desert wrapped in a volcanic winter, sprinkled with metal bones of forgotten battles. No oceans, no forests, not even bacteria hardy enough to grow under a microscope. The sun rose like an apology, pale, reluctant, and never warm. The United Galactic Assembly called it a place to rebuild, though even a passing asteroid wouldn't have stopped for a photo. They'd left a few crates of supplies, a rusty terraforming scaffold that hadn't worked since the Second Mechri War, and a farewell note transmitted in 46 dialects that boiled down to, "Good luck. Don't die weirdly." Maeve remembered the first week well. The windstorms had flayed their outer shelters. The breathable air was technically air, if you liked your lungs lightly sandblasted. And half the colony's equipment had arrived broken or labeled in Tharnic, an alien language whose only human translator died of food poisoning 2 days in. Still, no one panicked. Humanity had mastered the fine art of the grim joke. "Think of it this way," Private Roland muttered while duct taping a fractured solar panel, "we're not on fire. That's a win." "Yet," Maeve replied, checking the atmospheric sensors. "Give it time." They had no leadership hierarchy beyond necessity, but people turned to Maeve quickly. She had a calm voice, a precise mind, and a way of speaking that could soothe or skewer depending on her smile. She didn't shout orders. She asked questions like, "How long do you think until those storms expose the copper veins in Sector 4? And just like that, the mining teams were digging before the question mark hit the ground. By week 3, she had mapped every geothermal vent within 50 kilometers. By week 5, they'd started laying insulated tunnels. "We dig down," she said, pointing at the scorched earth. "Not just to survive. To prepare." Nobody asked what for. They trusted her tone, polite, composed, but sharp-edged like the silence before a blade drops. Carnax didn't want them. But humans were persistent. Like mold. Or bad decisions. They burrowed, repurposed, and retrofitted everything they touched. Dead satellites became shield housings. Alien scrap metal turned into smelters. A broken AI they'd found half buried under a fallen dropship. Maeve had it managing inventory by week 10 and quoting human sarcasm by month 3. "Status report," she'd ask. And the AI, whom they renamed Kevin, would reply, "Everything's broken, but not catastrophically. Just like your politics." Food was the next crisis. The hydroponics unit failed on day 42. The emergency ration packs were mostly inedible. Someone discovered the synthetic protein printer would produce cheeseburger analogs if you entered specific military override codes, leftovers from Earth's last war. They weren't nutritious, but morale soared. "They taste like sadness and ketchup," Maeve observed, chewing slowly. "Better than ration paste," Roland replied. "That stuff tastes like surrender." Visitors came eventually. The first were Varnock, tall, spiny creatures with teeth that clicked when they laughed. They arrived in a gleaming cruiser, hovering above the colony like a smug halo. "You're adapting well," their ambassador remarked, nose wrinkled at the dust coating his boots. "Remarkable. Like cockroaches, you humans." Maeve smiled, brushing imaginary dirt from her sleeve. "We prefer resilient opportunists. More syllables. Sounds smarter." The ambassador laughed, unsure if he'd been insulted. That was Maeve's specialty. He walked past the outer perimeter and into the shell of what looked like a crude refinery. What he didn't see were the underground vaults humming beneath his feet, hidden reactors, encrypted networks, and prototype weapons shaped from alien junk. "What's this area used for?" he asked casually. "Mostly decorative," Maeve replied. "Adds ambience. And slight electromagnetic distortion. But that's just a quirk of the metal, I'm told. She offered him a cup of something steaming and brown. Is it safe? We've been drinking it for months, she said. No one's exploded, recently. The ambassador left 2 days later, still chuckling about human creativity, never noticing the encrypted signal his ship activated mid-flight. It pinged one of Earth's cloaked satellites, still orbiting, still listening. Maeve logged the event with a note, trigger test successful. Phase 2 viable. Every week after, they built more. Not visibly. Not loudly. Quiet construction. Passive upgrades. Defensive lines disguised as mining corridors. Communication towers shaped like collapsed scaffolds. Their fortress grew downward, outward, hidden under layers of deliberate neglect. Above ground? Still a wasteland. Just how they liked it. Even the locals, if you could call ancient semi-sentient sandworms locals, learned to avoid them. One colonist joked, "We're like reverse termites. We live in the dirt, but build nightmares." Kevin replied, "Correction, termites do that too." Maeve rarely smiled in front of others, but that time, she let it show. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were waiting. By the 15th year, Karnak's 12 was still ugly on the outside. That was intentional. The orbital scan showed a fractured, inhospitable crust, the air was slightly toxic, the radiation levels non-lethal but discouraging, and heat signatures were too low for life. Perfect. Camouflage through misery, Kevin quipped, hovering beside Maeve as she reviewed thermal imaging. Your species' most effective defense. She nodded. The galaxy expects us to survive. Not to evolve. Beneath the ash-coated surface, Karnax had transformed into something no one outside Earth's exile would believe. The planet's bones had been hollowed out, fortified, and reborn as a living machine, one that could hum, fire, and kill. The geothermal vents they'd mapped in year 1 now powered a city woven into the stone. Artificial climate pods sustained human agriculture in cavernous farms. Railguns sat mounted on retractable platforms, their barrels cooled by recycled vapor tunnels. The scrapyard tech left behind by the galaxy's wars had been melted, upgraded, and stitched together into a beast with no name, because naming it would imply it needed to be known. Maeve stood before a holographic map that looked like a spider's web of death stitched into Karnax's crust. Surface illusion grid operational, she asked. Of course, Kevin replied. To passing eyes, we're still space hobos playing hide-and-seek with survival. She tapped a point near the southern ridge. That's where the Varnock scout ship touched down last time. Kevin pulsed green. Yes. 3 meters above the thermite lances. I admired your restraint, by the way. I would have lit the whole ridge. Too soon, she murmured. We're still in the charm phase. That charm phase was about to get tested. The next ship that arrived wasn't just a scout. It was a formal delegation. 5 alien species. All in diplomatic robes. All smiles. All suspicious. Varnock. The Lean. Drixie. Corum. One soft-shell Kareen. Maeve met them at the same rocky valley where the original dropship had landed 16 years ago. She wore a neutral gray uniform, hands behind her back, face politely curious. A few guards stood nearby, unarmed, but visibly fit, scarred, and far too relaxed for a starving colony. You've adapted well, said Ambassador Dlero, of the Lean with translucent skin and nerves that glowed like algae. We expected less. We get that a lot, Maeve replied gently. Humans tend to overdeliver when overlooked. The Drixie diplomat, a feathered mantis-like being, clicked its mandibles. Your planetary output has increased 142% in 5 cycles. Curious. Maeve smiled. Resourcefulness is a side effect of desperation. We just didn't want to die badly. The Kareen leaned forward. And yet, your signal activity has increased. Your satellite grid is fully operational. You even responded to a Tharnic dialect broadcast last week. Those are classified frequencies. Maeve didn't blink. Kevin has a hobby. He's trying to collect obsolete languages. From encrypted military channels? Obsolete military channels, she corrected, voice still sweet. Kevin chimed in through a nearby speaker. I also learned to bake. Want cookies? None of them laughed. The delegation toured the colony under tight supervision. What they saw was carefully curated, halls that looked like repurposed cargo bays, power nodes that hummed just a little too loudly, people who smiled too easily. All meant to appear functional but innocent. Impressive enough to earn respect. Not threatening enough to invite retaliation. It was a difficult dance. The aliens noticed the mixed tech, Tharnic plating welded to human reactor cores, Mechary turrets reshaped into power conduits, old AI systems acting as educational tutors for human children. Tolero trailed his fingers across a smooth metal panel. It's eerie, how quickly you absorb everything. We don't mean to, Maeve said, voice light. But we're wired for trial and error. Especially the error part. We make excellent use of failure. The Varnock ambassador grunted. You reverse-engineered weapons tech from battlefield junk. That's not failure. That's theft. Maeve met his gaze, eyes steady. Is it theft if the galaxy left it behind like garbage? He opened his mouth, but the lean cut in. Let's not start a philosophical war over salvage law. Maeve's smile deepened, just enough to be noticed. Later that evening, she stood in the control room, watching the delegates through dozens of hidden cams. They were talking, whispering in dialects they assumed couldn't be decoded. Kevin translated easily. They suspect you're hiding weapons. They're not wrong. But they're not sure if it's defensive, or worse. Maeve folded her arms. Let them wonder. It keeps them busy. Should I trigger the storm grid? Scare them with a lightning display? Not yet. That comes later. For now, she pointed to a blinking icon on the central display. Let's test the orbital decoy net. And activate the buried EMP mesh on the southern plateau. I want them to get curious. Kevin's tone shifted slightly, almost gleeful. Curious enough to poke? Yes. Won't that trigger an incident? Maeve took a long sip from her mug. That's the point. The next morning, the Varnock ship lifted off early, citing urgent matters. Maeve knew what that meant. They'd picked up energy spikes. They'd seen the buried infrastructure, just enough to get paranoid. Just enough to report back. As their ship disappeared into the sky, Maeve stood watching with her officers. Roland scratched his beard. You think they'll come back angry? Maeve shrugged. Maybe. But it won't be the first punch that matters. He looked at her. And what if they send an armada? Maeve smiled. Then we stop pretending. We thought you'd never actually poke it, Maeve muttered as alarms blinked calmly across the display grid. But thank you, for the confirmation. The Varnock didn't declare war. They sent a survey vessel. Officially, it was there for planetary ecological stability verification. Unofficially, it was a stealth warcraft, armed, cloaked, and arrogantly silent. Designed for quick scans and faster strikes. Its hull shimmered in near invisibility. Its weapons charged in quiet pulses. The humans noticed it before it left the first jump gate. Karnax's sky looked empty. But high above, orbit was threaded with a lattice of hidden satellites disguised as cold junk, solar mirrors, and mineral sensors. Every piece of sky was being watched by something that pretended not to exist. When the Varnock ship blinked into orbit, two things happened instantly. First, Kevin flagged it with a cheery message. Unauthorized guests detected. Deploying welcome mat. Second, the planetary surface shifted. Not visibly. Not to anyone looking from above. But deep within Karnax, silent systems powered on for the first time in years. Inside the human command chamber, the mood was less panic, more pre-match coffee. Maeve stood at the central console, arms folded, expression unreadable. "They're going to sweep low over Sector 8, Kevin reported. "The heat signatures we planted will draw them." Roland looked up from a terminal. "Decoy fields are humming. EMP lattice prepped. Want to knock gently or slap them full force?" Maeve's answer was soft. "Let's give them a taste." The Varnock vessel slid through the upper atmosphere like a shark through fog. Its scanners found exactly what they were supposed to: anomalous power signatures, minor radiation surges, signs of unregistered shield energy. It was bait. And they bit. As soon as they dropped to low altitude, two things triggered. The decoy grid surged, showing false shield generator arrays hidden in rock beds. The orbital dampeners kicked in, disabling their cloaking systems for a glorious 3.2 seconds, long enough for every sensor across Carnax to lock on. Then came the message. A simple hologram appeared on their bridge. Maeve Rourke, in her gray uniform, sipping from a mug. "We noticed you up there." "T?" The captain barked for evasive maneuvers. Too late. The sky cracked. From Carnax's crust, 8 twin-barreled railguns silently rose like sleeping titans stretching after a long nap. They didn't fire. They didn't need to. Because from the Varnock perspective, the true weapon was what they hadn't known existed. Kevin's voice followed Maeve's. "Your propulsion's offline now. Temporarily. We didn't break anything, yet. Their engines failed. Life support hiccuped. Artificial gravity did a somersault. The ship froze in midair, hovering helplessly as invisible nets of ionized particles locked it in a stasis grid. The Varnock didn't send a distress call. They were too humiliated." Inside Carnax's ops center, Roland whistled. "You sure we shouldn't shoot it?" "Just a little." Maeve shook her head. "No bodies. Not yet. We're still in the reasonable doubt phase." He raised an eyebrow. "What phase comes next?" Maeve's smile was polite. "Reputation management." 3 hours later, the Varnock ship was allowed to leave. Mostly intact. They found a message burned into the outer hull by nanodrones. "Please knock next time." The exiles. The incident sparked galactic tremors. Footage leaked, somehow. Satellite data surfaced. Alien broadcasters ran headlines like, "Carnax awakens? The Human War Fortress conspiracy. From scrap to superpower, are the exiles hiding something?" The United Galactic Assembly called for an emergency council. The usual mix of smugness, fear, and political flatulence filled the chamber. The Varnock ambassadors slammed a clawed hand on the table. "They tricked us. They've militarized exile." The Valine elder didn't look up. "You expected them to die quietly. You gave humans isolation and scrap. That was either mercy or a mistake." The ambassador growled, "They're a threat." The elder finally looked up, calm and unblinking. "You gave the apex species of their planet tools and time. And you're surprised they bit back?" Maeve was summoned to speak. She arrived at the assembly in a borrowed civilian ship, escorted by 2 drone decoys and no visible weapons. She walked into the council chamber alone, hands behind her back, posture unthreatening. Her speech was short. Controlled. Gentle. "We were given a place to survive. We did more. We adapted, recycled, restructured. We became something the galaxy never expected, a civilization too stubborn to fade. We didn't militarize exile. We engineered peace through readiness." The quorum delegate, 8-eyed and skeptical, snorted. "That ship you disabled, was that peace?" Maeve sipped water. "They came uninvited, cloaked, and armed. We left them unharmed. That's restraint, not war." Silence followed. Then a soft ripple of nervous chuckling. Even the Valine cracked a smile. After the session, the Valine elder approached her privately. "You've built a myth," he said. Maeve nodded. "A true one. They think you're just clever engineers. I know. And what are you really, Commander? Maeve held his gaze. We're the sleeping bear. And they just rang the dinner bell. Back on Karnax, the humans celebrated in their usual way, low-key, sarcastic, and armed. Roland raised a toast in the mess hall. To our first official galactic threat level upgrade. Laughter followed. Kevin blinked red. New headline suggestion, exiles suspected of having brain cells. Maeve said nothing. She simply looked out the reinforced window across the barren surface. Above, the stars sparkled. Below, the planet waited. The trap was set. The galaxy was watching. And that was exactly what humanity wanted. We didn't build Karnax to survive. We built it so the galaxy would come knocking. And we'd be ready to answer. Commander Maeve Rourke. The galaxy didn't sleep easy after the Karnax incident. Not when whispers began circling, rumors of human tech that outmatched known designs, of a planet that breathed war while smiling like it offered a cup of tea. Alien analysts reviewed every frame of footage. Linguists dissected Maeve's speech like it hid doomsday equations. Generals debated if a fleet strike was needed. Diplomats begged for restraint. And humans? Humans waited. Karnax returned to quiet, the way a hunter returns to stillness after bait is set. The planet maintained its masquerade of desperation, still cracked, still gray, still uninviting, until you looked too closely. That's when the pieces didn't add up. The Council of Species convened once more. This time on neutral ground, a Valine listening arc suspended in orbit above a waterworld called Sarenth. Maeve attended the summit, alone, as always. The room was circular, old wood and crystal woven into the walls, species from 20 systems seated in quiet tension. Eyes followed her as she stepped forward, calm and unarmed. Before you begin, said the Varnock chairman, rising, let me ask directly, are humans preparing for war? Maeve tilted her head slightly, smiling as if he'd asked about weather patterns. No, she said. We already did that. Murmurs spread. The Valine elder raised a translucent hand. Then what is Karnax, Commander? She folded her hands behind her back. It's a stage. For what? Asked the Drixie ambassador. For performance. Observation. Reaction testing. Another pause. The room was listening now. Maeve's voice remained gentle. Karnax was never our end. It was our offer. An invitation, bait disguised as weakness. A trap, the Corrine hissed. Maeve's smile didn't reach her eyes. Only if you came to hurt us. For the curious? For the cautious? It was a mirror. We watched who approached, how they spoke to us, what they assumed. And what did we assume? The Varnock asked coldly. Maeve finally stepped forward. Her presence wasn't loud. It was inevitable. You assumed exile meant helpless. That humans adapt to survive. That we tinker, joke, and scrape by with clever tools. She leaned ever so slightly toward the center console, her tone softening into something far more dangerous. You never considered that we were measuring you. Every visit. Every insult. Every backhanded gift. It was data. The chamber fell completely silent. Somewhere deep beneath Karnax, massive engines powered down with a quiet hiss. The largest railgun array rotated not toward the stars, but toward home, where Earth sat in cloaked silence. The command sequence had been initiated. Not for war. For reveal. On board the Valine Ark, Kevin's voice echoed from Maeve's portable comlink. Broadcasting now, Commander. Cloak drops in 5. 4. Screens across the chamber lit up. There it was. Earth. Whole. Shielded. Hidden behind quantum shroud tech so advanced even the Valines blinked in surprise. A hidden network of satellites bloomed around it, like petals unfolding, each one armed, powered, and decades old. Impossible, someone whispered. You fake your extinction, another asked. Maeve didn't reply right away. She let the image sit, let their assumptions break. Then she spoke. We didn't lie. We let the truth evolve. Earth needed time. We needed space. So we disappeared, on purpose. You mean to say, the lean began, eyes wide, Karnax wasn't your recovery? Karnax was a decoy. Maeve nodded. Earth is the keystone. Fortress Karnax was the beacon. Back on Karnax, the illusion grid shut down. For the first time, the planet's real surface was visible. Black towers rose from hardened basalt. A launch array stretched 5 kilometers wide. Atmospheric cannons angled into the sky. Cities gleamed beneath force fields. There were no signs of poverty, damage, or desperation, only design, precision, and firepower. Hundreds of ships lifted from underground hangars. Not in a war formation, but in elegant, deliberate movement. A show. A message. We were never weak. The assembly broke into chaos. Half the council screamed about deception. Others whispered of awe, of caution, of realignment. And Maeve? She simply stood in the middle, hands clasped, as if waiting for the tantrum to end. The Varnock snarled. So what now, Commander? You declare yourselves overlords? Start conquering? Maeve gave a half-laugh. If we wanted to conquer, you wouldn't be in this room. Then what do you want? Her reply was soft. Terms. For surrender? No. For partnership. Under new rules. She tapped her console. A new image appeared. Not Karnax. Not Earth. 6 more worlds. All exiled colonies. All thought to be human losses. All now fortress worlds. We didn't build one Karnax. We built 7. 7, the Korean repeated, voice dry. Maeve's voice turned ice calm. 1 for every betrayal. The lean elder leaned back, quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. And if we refuse? Maeve smiled. You won't. You're too intelligent to start a war you'd already lost. Then what is this? The Drixie asked. A show of strength? No, she replied. A warning. And a welcome. To what? Maeve looked at each of them in turn. The new age. One where humans aren't the underdogs. One where we don't beg for seats at your table. We build our own. And anyone who mocks us again, well. She tilted her head with a soft, final smile. Let's just say, next time, we won't serve tea. Epilogue. As Maeve's ship departed the Ark, Earth's cloak faded fully. Humanity was no longer hiding. And somewhere across the stars, alien fleets began rethinking every choice they'd ever made. Because the sleeping bear wasn't just awake. It had built a den in the galaxy's heart.